below you can have careful.
Okay, we're live. So I would just like to say thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you so much to Dee from Sterling Collections. We're all really excited to hear your information tonight. So before we rip into it, I just wanted to say these Q&A sessions that I've been doing are just about sharing knowledge, and it is so important for me to be able to provide all of these great nights and loads of information so that then you can be a well-informed, responsible, caring rider, which is what every horse deserves. Now, I do run a mentoring program, and you can check out more details either on my website or on Patreon too. So let's just jump straight into it, Dee, and away you go. We either start on some bits or on the mechanics of the mouth.
Thank you, Kirstin, for having us. So tonight, one of the things I'd like to get across to everyone is when you look at a bit, the understanding of the mechanics on how it works. So when you want to choose something for your horse, you know what it's going to do when you put it into your horse's mouth. I also like to just go over your horses, the way that all horses have been bred and the design of their mouth, their tongue, their cheeks. So when you are putting that bit in, you've got an idea of the mechanics of it against the big thick tongue, the big chunky cheeks. So those are some of the topics I want to go through. I want to show you all the different mouthpieces, so when you see them, you can understand how it all works. So our first one, our Snaffle, which is everybody goes to, everybody uses, and the Snaffle is just a single jointed snaffle, and this puts 100% bar pressure. So when you have your snaffle in the horse's mouth and you're riding along and you pull on the brakes and the head goes up, that is correct, because that's what the snaffle's asked the mouth to do, is to come up. So when you're looking at anything that has bar pressure, it is asking the head to lift, which comes into my three-piece bits. So when you see a three-piece bit that looks like this, can you see it, Kirstin?
Yes, that's great.
So however big the middle piece is how much tongue pressure is on the horse. So like this one here will be medium tongue pressure, and then you've got your bar pressure. So when you're riding the horse, that's why you'll play with your hands and go a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So there goes the tongue, the bar, the tongue, the bar. But sometimes the horses in a bit like this will grab a side and pull on it, or be heavy on it, or block on it. And that is just because of the bar pressure. So relieve the bar pressure, which I have a saying when I'm riding or working with horses, and I see it is, when you see a horse block against a pressure, not wanting to come through, and there's resistance, always remember, wherever the resistance is feeling in your hands, relieve that to gain the control. So your horse can come up and be light in your hands, and you've got it in between your legs and it's using its top line. So when you see your three-bit pieces, this is what your tongue and your bar pressure. So always look at the middle to see how big it is. Like you'll get one like this, which is a three-piece bit, and it's got little round washers on it. So now these round washers are for a horse that likes to play with its tongue, and it will play with it and they'll be very happy. But the piece across the middle here is 55. So it is full tongue pressure compared to this one, which is only 45, and it's not as much tongue pressure. Right, there we go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So then you get one that looks like this. And again, it's got a round ball on it, and that's quite sharp in the mouth, and it's quite sharp on the bar pressure. So when you're looking at any three-piece bit, look how big the middle is, and then you know how much tongue pressure will be on the tongue, and then your bar pressure. And the smaller it is in the middle, the sharper it is on the bars and the less on the tongue. The bigger it is in the middle, the more pressure on the tongue and the less on the bars. So that's your general three-piece bits on how they work. Also in a three-piece bit, you'll often get a plate. Now, the bomber plates don't work like your Frenchlings or your Dr. Bristols. always remember a horse's head is at the 45-degree angle. So your bit will sit like this. So the plate is lying on the tongue, not cutting into the tongue this way, like a French length will be sharp and will be on the edge into the tongue. The plate here will lie across it, distributing pressure evenly. And again, it's back to your 45 mils across the tongue and then bar pressure. When you'll see a bit that has got the rolls on the side, so this side here rolls, I call it insurance for show jumpers. So you're coming along and the horse gets anxious, it's a living animal, and it will bite down on the bit. This will roll, and then you still got control of the bit. The horse hasn't run off and you lose your control. You still have that control with the bits. So those are my 3-piece bits.
And apart from trying different mouthpieces on Dee, is there a way that you can tell whether the horse likes tongue pressure or bar pressure?
You can have, if you have any 3-piece bit, if it's got a bobble or a plate and you're riding and you apply a bit of contact and the nose tips in and under and it comes towards the chest, it's tongue sensitive. So you take everything out the 3-piece, start looking at your ported range of bits or your chain range of bits. If you're in a 3-piece bit and you're going along and it's pulling on the one side and twists the head, it's bar sensitive. And sometimes with the bar sensitive, you can be on the cusp of being a bit tongue sensitive and bar sensitive, or can just be, and that's a bit tricky. When it is just, you can't tell if it's just the bars, and you can release that by putting your locking bits in, which are, I'm looking for my, so these are locking bits. So this is your barrel 20. So you've only got a little bit of tongue pressure, and then this rolls, but it lifts. There's no bar pressure on it. And then this is your locker. Yeah. And again, it's got a little bit of tongue pressure, but your arms move independently this way, where your barrel 20 moves and it rolls this way. Yeah. So I find horses that I take out of a 3-piece that are bar sensitive. Those are the 2 mouthpieces. I'll put them in straight away to see where they are. I'll normally get a good response with that. If I don't and I can still see they're blocking, then I will put them into the ultra comfy and start looking at more of the my ported barrel. This one. Then my ported barrel look. Yes, yeah. Because that relieves a little bit of the bar pressure and the tongue, and then when you need it, it engages and then it gives that pressure release again. So when I'm talking about the muscle groups, so when I'm watching horses that are not comfortable in the mouth, so if that tongue is not comfortable, it's going to come right through the whole body. You're not going to get the hindquarters underneath them. You're not going to pick up the sling. So I found a picture. Can you see it?
Yeah, that looks perfect.
And this orange color is my muscle groups that I follow when you're riding. So I've got to make this muscle group soft so the horse can pick itself up when the hindquarters underneath. So if anywhere along that mouth on the tongue is blocking or fighting, it's going to block that whole cycle, that whole sling of muscle.
And it's great, that picture too, Dee, because when I stand in the middle of a circle and watch horses, that's the one way I can tell whether the horse is truly in self-carriage, because that orange muscle at the base of the neck, the brachiocephalic, those big muscles bulge when the horse is not soft. And then when they're elevated like a nice little rainbow, that's when I can tell the horse is released through the tongue and soft, and the rider's got that self-carriage feeling.
Yeah, and as soon as that muscle group is soft and the horse is happy with the communication tool in its mouth, the rider's soft. I find as soon as that muscle group and I get the right pressure of the bit, I see all of a sudden the rider's shoulders soften, their hands soften, they come forward because there's no resistance coming through. that's talking about the resistance. When Savvy goes into a show or I'm at a show, you often hear people go, oh, do you need to help me because my bit's not working? And one of the things that you've always got to remember when you get to a show, there are so many variables that are happening there that if you tense yourself, so I have a saying with Savvy and it goes, tension in the veins goes through to the reins. So, it's the horses feel absolutely everything. So it's not always a bit problem. Sometimes it is a bit problem, but when you're at a show, the horses also feel that tension.
And I would like to back that up and just say, I just taught a lesson today and I said to her, this is fabulous to teach you before today because it really reminds me to say to everybody that, you can blame the bit and say the horse doesn't have the best contact, but, this horse today, when you ride with a forward-thinking hand, and make sure when you use your hand, you don't put the weight onto your hands. You put the weight through your fingertips. You hold the rein between your thumb and your first finger, and then you squeeze the water out of a sponge feeling with the fourth finger, and then you release the pressure so that the horse constantly looks for self-carriage and peace and softness in the mouth. And that's what gives you that beautiful feel. It's not necessarily that you'll chuck a bit on and go, bang, this horse feels amazing. You have to create trust with his mouth so that he feels like he can trust your hands to take them forward.
100%. And that's another thing, that when you're wanting to go into a shop to have a look, because there are beautiful bits out there. There are so many beautiful types of bits. If you get to understand the mechanics of how they work, you can choose that bit for your horse and for it to be happy. And it's just when you're looking at them, you just know how they operate. And that's one of the things I really want to get through to everybody. They can all become their own bit fitters at the end of the day. I mean, you've just got to understand the mechanics, 3-piece bits, how they work and how the locking bits work. Understand your horse. There is no fix-it bits. There's no miracle bits out there. Some horses you can fix and you can get 100% positive result out of it, and the ride and everything's like, oh my God, and the horse is like, oh, thank God for that. And you'll get some horses that you might only get a 60% for it to be better, or an 80%, because there's other little issues going on. And like sometimes I go, oh, but my horse is still stiff, but then the rider is also stiff and crooked on the horse, so then the horse becomes crooked. So bitting is not just all about finding that miracle, but there's so many variables to it.
Yeah.
It's just,
if you start with a bit that's actually comfortable in the horse's mouth, then at least you can go every day. You hop on and think, gosh, he feels awful today. You don't just necessarily blame the bit. You go, okay, right, I need to do a whole set of exercises to make him more through or more supple because I know that it's comfortable in the mouth.
Yes. Well, our babies that we have here, so it's got the new mouth. So our one Henson baby has got the big head, the chunky cheeks, the chunky tongue. So when we came to start fitting it, I was like, great, I'll stick it into a lockup because that's what you do. And she was like, no, you don't. I don't want a lockup. And I'm like, oh, rightio. So now it's not like, right, you're going to like this board, I'm going to try this bit, I'm going to put this in the mouth. It's now you've got to stand back and go, what question can I ask or give the horse so it gives me back an answer? I know how to fix it. So as soon as I put the lock up in, she didn't like that. So I went straight down the chain range, which is your water fits, because your water fits are a soft bit.
Which I'm so glad to hear you say that, because this is a really important thing for people to hear, because in the olden days, in Pony Club manual days, everybody said a water fid was a harsh bit. But, you go and roll that on your arm, it's actually very soothing and quite comfortable on your arm, which is very much like a horse's tongue, So, it is a bit of a misconception there.
It is. And this is my go-to. I think every stable needs to have a water fit in there, because to me it's the reset bit. It's the reset bit for the new mouths of today. So you just put this in and it's relieved all pressure. You haven't got your bar pressure, it's soft across the tongue, and then at least the horse can go, okay, I'm going to try give you a contact, and then you will change from there. I mean, with our little baby Henson that we have had, we must have done about 5 or 6 bit changes until she was comfortable in her mouth. She had built up the muscle to be able to do the work, carry Savannah, and understand the communication we want to put through. And yeah, she ended up along in the chain range. She ended up in something like this, which is a flexible, right, there we go. It's a flexible molded mullen. It's plastic. And that's what she loves.
Yeah. And so
and
what sort of, sorry, and what, so tell me what sort of horse, you know, would you go, let's try one of these bendy mullen mounts in? What would be your sort of typical horse that you go, right, we'd try one of those?
That if I come to see a mouth and it's got a lot of tongue, a lot of cheek, and I had put it into a lockup and it still was blocking and it hadn't released that orange muscle group set that I showed you, I would go straight into trying that because it's not invasive in the mouth, it's soft. It allows the tongue to come up and push in, which will bring the back up and release those muscles underneath so you can do your lateral work and go forward and stop. So I would. So yeah, this one, and this is also a rubber bit. Talking about, it's all these new, I've got a new range of bits coming, and they have this style of being a flexible bit because there are more and more horses going down this range of bits than the 3-piece broken bits. So I've done the 3-piece, which is your tongue and your bar. In our lockup range, where you've got your lockup and then your barrel 20, you also have a barrel 30, which is a medium tongue pressure. So in our locking range, you will have a series of different pressures for the tongue from light to heavy, but it releases the bar pressure. And then we have this one, which is, we call it the elliptical roller. It is a 3-piece bit, but it is full tongue pressure. So it has relieved a bit of the bar. So I keep this in my locking range, in my locking group of bits. This is my the elliptical lockup, and that is 3/4 tongue pressure. Now I know that there has been a whole lot of dressage changes with the rules, and that all pertains to the double bridles. And I am getting an updated bit list from the factory of what is, and I go all by the FEI legal bits because each local dressage has their own rules and regulations, which on the day you have to find out. But I like to keep by the FEI rules, so when you get to the competitions, which we normally are run by FEI rules, your bits is legal. So just keep watching, and I'll send something through to Kirstin as soon as I get it back from the factory of all the FEI legal ones. In our chain range of bits, which is my favorite group of bits, you have the Waterfords, and there's 2 types of Waterfords. You have the Waterford with the bumps, and then you have the one that is called a Waterford barrel, which is my favorite one, which is this one, and it's all soft. So all the bumps have been taken away. So it gives you that soft feel in the mouth across the tongue. And this is the one that's got the bubbles on it. Can you see the bubbles?
Those aren't legal yet. Oh, they're not legal for dressage, are they?
No, so if your horse likes, say, a Waterford and is happy in a Waterford, the legal version of a Waterford are these 2 bits. So it's the flexible mullen and the molded flexible.
Right, yeah.
So are these 2. Again, I'm going to confirm all dressage legal bits because I know there have been a change. So from the last time, I knew these were all good. But let's just wait for the list to come out again, because there has been quite a few changes. But yes, in the dressage, this is the legal. These 2 are the legal ones. Again, they're both soft, and your horse comes into the contact softly. You've got that orange muscle group being is soft underneath, so you can ride your dressage chest and get all your 8s.
That's what we like the sound of.
Savannah shouting 10s, not 8s, 10s.
Exactly.
So now we're going to go into the ported range, but before I go into the ported range, there's another ported range I want to touch on. It's called the Swivel. And it has come out recently, and I like the Swivel for that old schoolmaster horse that has had hundreds of bits put in their mouths, had 100 of different hands through its mouth. And what this bit does, it allows the horse to be in control of its own mouth, because this mouthpiece swivels. So at the side piece here is all still, but this mouth, the horse can control where it wants the mouthpiece to be. So when you pull on the reins, it will move it in its mouth, and it like subconsciously feels secure because it's in control of its mouth, and then it just becomes softer. But it is for a certain, not every horse will go in this, but it is for that really, I have found the older, more sensitive horse that's gone through the mill respond well with a bit like this. And you get it in the Happy Tongue and the Bomber Blue. So those are the only two mouthpieces that it comes in for the swivel, because of the different components that you have to have on the side for it to swivel.
Right.
And then if you have a look, if you look at it, if I can get this straight, it's straight up.
Yeah.
Can you see if I got it? So it's a very straight port in the mouth. Whereas when we normally talk about our normal single ports, if you have a look at the Happy Tongue, I'm going to try to get it on the side, it bulges out in the front. So it's got a forward curve, so it allows the tongue to come up and in. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's, yep, you can. That's not clear.
It has the tongue relief in here for the tongue to come up in, and the bar section where the bars go on the mouth is soft. It's not so with a straight port, it is more bar pressure than with a forward port. It is not as much bar pressure. So and I know this is dressage legal, which I knew a lot of dressage riders were happy when they passed this for dressage. So this is your tongue relief. It is a firm bit. It doesn't have the flexibility. So sometimes you will find horses like it, but then they get stuck and you can't move them. Then I tend to go to my ported barrel, which still gives you the same release of the tongue pressure, soft on the bars, but it gives that independent rein, so you can move the shoulders and be flexible with them. And
just
then
need to move over a little bit and towards Jeffrey in the background. That's better.
In the Bomber range, all the mouthpieces I talk about does come in all the different side pieces. So if you want a loose ring or an egg bud or a drop cheek in the mouthpiece, it can be made like that, which is super for someone that if a horse likes, say, the ported barrel and it's in a loose ring ported barrel, but you want to go jumping and you need a little bit more brakes, you still keep the same mouthpiece. Don't change the mouthpiece. Just then get a ported barrel that's got a 2.5 ring or a gag action on the side, so you've got more braking. So whatever you find when you're dealing with horses and you find a horse that likes a mouthpiece, don't change the mouthpiece. Keep the mouthpiece the same. Just get that same bit in a different side. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And so just going forward with that, so let's talk about the fixed ring. So you've decided that your horse likes a particular mouthpiece. Then what would you say the difference between a fixed ring and a loose ring is?
Oh, I love loose rings. The reason why I like loose rings is because it lets the bit in the mouthpiece fall back to a neutral position after you have relaxed the reins or you're just sitting gently, where anything that is fixed has slight pull pressure, but the horse has to readjust the mouthpiece.
Right.
So if I can get a horse in a loose ring and it's happy in a loose ring, I'll keep it in a loose ring. Yes, some horses love a fixed ring. The two differences are when you're talking down the rein, a loose ring is direct. It's now, the horse can hear it loud and clear. Anything with a fixed, it's slightly softer. The horse can't. It just the message down the range just come a little softer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's between a fixed and that does. And talking about that, where's my little leather piece? I got a trick.
Yeah. We like tricks.
You have your loose ring.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want to turn, whatever the case may be, but you need to put a film, your instructor says put a filmer on, which means you have to go buy another bit. No. You just get a piece of leather, be it sometimes your flash from your canvasser, and you put it behind your bit. And then that acts as a filmer. And then just before you do your dressage test, just make sure you take it off.
Oh, what a good idea. So so the picture just got a little pixelated then. So it's just, right, it's just a cheek piece hooked on the back of the bit so it goes behind the chin and it keeps the rings more on the side of the horse's cheeks.
Yes.
What a great idea.
Yeah, and then that's your filmer. So often, like if you're in a lesson and the horse is just not wanting to do something, just take the flash off and whip that behind, and then you've got your steering.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah. So when we got Lenny, before Savannah would go in for her dressage test, she would warm up with one of these behind, and I had to always remember to take it off before she did a dressage test, just because he was stiff on the one side until he released that muscle group.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just a little trick. So you don't have to have 20 bits sitting in there doing nothing. It's your filmer and the lettering.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. So
Dee, I was just going to say, can you tell our viewers what sort of things that horses do when they're uncomfortable in the bit? I remember you telling me once before that they do different things when they're trying to tell you things that they're not happy in their bit.
Yeah. So a horse when you're going around, its nose has got to be at the vertical point. So that's my first indication to see how happy the horse is. So often you'll see a horse, you'll be riding, it will be at its vertical point, and then the nose will come up and do this and pull away. And then the rider pulls it back in, and then the reins get yanked out of the rider's arms. So for me, then it normally has a 3-piece bit in the mouth. There's a pressure in that mouth that it is fighting against to try and pull the reins out to relieve a pressure that it's uncomfortable with. So I would go down the locking range of bits because I would relieve the bar pressure. If you're going along and the horse's nose is tilting towards the chest and is really over curling, that's really tongue sensitive and sometimes tongue and bar sensitive, then I do my quarter range and my chain range. Then I'll try those two pressure groups for them. Sometimes when you are watching the horses coming to a jump, and as they're coming in, they throw their head up and they don't really rock back to do a bascule over. They kind of just push with their chest. Again, that's all bar pressure. Relieve that bar pressure to gain the control.
Excellent. And what about horses that always try to go lower and lower with their head out and down?
Down, and that's your bar and tongue pressure coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you go to a bit that the chain rein.
Yeah, I go down to, I normally, when I start seeing that horse, when it's doing the dive with the nose forward but down towards the ground, it is a bar and tongue issue for me. I normally put it into a ported barrel. Yeah. I like going to my ported barrels for that because it gives still a slight bit of bar pressure, which you will need, but it relieves that tongue so you can just bring that horse's head up.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah.
And I would say that I heard that one of the dressage horses that was at the Olympics, suffered a pulmonary, event during its dressage test, and they say that it's because the horse was struggling because his tongue was jammed down and his nose was done up, tight. So, it creates a lot of stress when a horse's tongue feels like it's jammed down into its mouth. And when it's, the dentist once said to me that if you if you think about a horse, if it's trying to avoid the pressure on its tongue and it sucks the tongue back into the mouth, that while you're just sitting there now, put your tongue into the back of your throat. Now jam it up there and now try and swallow. And you can see, freaking uncomfortable. So you can see why the horse starts to get stressed and pull more, because it's finding that you're not releasing the pressure of the tongue.
Yeah. That's why I'm just hoping that by the end of tonight I would have got through and people would understand the pressure's a lot better to be able to help their horses, so no more horses go through what that horse went through. And it is true, and you'll find that people don't understand why the mouth is doing that, so they just tie it up tighter instead of trying to relieve the pressure to make the horse more comfortable. So my saying I say all the time is release the resistance to gain the control. So when we come to see a horse and rider, I see them for that first 30 seconds. But riders have been with their horses for ages. They need to start learning where that resistance is to be able to relieve it. And there are hundreds of beautiful different bits out there that they can be able to just go, you know what, I've got bar pressure problems, I need to look at my locking range, or I have tongue and bar problems, so I need to look at the ported range or the broken ports, or a little bit into the chain range. So if there's one thing I can get across tonight is the mechanics of how it works and how important it is for that muscle group to be not to be tense, because if you have that tension through the horse, you don't have a happy horse at all.
Exactly. And and the whole concept of training your horses to teach them pressure release, so that you close your fingers, you don't pull on the rein, you only hold your hand out in front of you, you squeeze the rein, and then you release the pressure, and then the horse learns that if he stays soft in the hand, then you don't squeeze the rein again, and you only just send a message down the rein. So you're constantly trying to train the horse to look for the pressure release rather than that you just keep hanging on.
Yes, it's the communication tool. You've got to find that communication tool. And yes, some horses will go through 4 or 5 different bits, and that will be that's what they will have, especially the eventers when it comes to cross country. You will have your dressage bit, but then depending on what type of course you're running, you can run a flat cross-country course and then you know what type of gag action you need, or you might need a little bit more because it's a little bit more hilly, or it's got a little bit more twists and turns. So you've got to know your horse, and you will have an array of bits to go with the different disciplines, but kind bits, communication bits that the horse is not going to feel invaded in the mouth.
Totally. And it reminds me of traveling with my great aunt in Singapore when I was a kid, because she couldn't speak Chinese. So she would yell. She wouldn't just say it in English. She would get louder and louder and louder. And that's what I always think of that analogy when I say to people about bits. I'm like, it's like you have the wrong bit, but you just keep putting more and more pressure on it. So you end up yelling at them, but they still can't understand because you're yelling English and they speak Chinese. So you've actually got to speak their language, and then you can communicate softly rather than just getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So sorry.
We have to look at it and see the questions. What is the question I'm asking the horse? What is it telling me? You've got to just listen to what they're saying, listen to the body movements of where it's blocking, and being able to release it. There are so many bits out there that you can find that will make the horse happy. And it's just a matter of understand the mechanics. When you see a ported bit like the Bomber Blue, when you see something like this, right, tongue relief, bar pressure, because it's a straight up port. When you see a port like the Happy Tongue, you go, great, there's a little bit of bar pressure, still your tongue relief. That's kind of what I want to put in my horse's mouth, because that's what I feel my horse would like. Or you're like, right, no, my horse wants the flexible mullen because he wants something soft around the mouth, and he wants to go with to pull. You've got to always remember, you've got to get that tongue to come up into the bit to pull it up, to bring that top line and use that orange muscle group underneath. So understand all the bits that you're going to have and what you're going to put in the mouth, so you don't feel like the horse has been insulted or invaded in its privacy.
Yeah.
And you'll get some horses that will go, don't touch my mouth, but you can put as much pressure on the side. And you'll get other horses that will go, you know what, don't put a lot of pole pressure on me, but put as much pressure in my tongue. I don't mind. So there's so many variables. You've just got to listen and try and release the pressure and work it out.
Now, are you okay to answer a couple of questions?
Yes.
Yeah. So the questions that I'm reading out tonight, I've said to all of my patrons that they can get first dibs on all the questions. So Jo asks, she's got a horse that has got scarring on her tongue from when she was a trekker. She said, now, because of all those scars, she's going fine at the moment, but should she try something else that will be more comfortable for a horse with a damaged tongue?
Yes. If you're in a 3-piece bit, I would say yes. I'd say try if you can, and you'll probably find there'll be a block in there that you didn't realize she was having. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Rowena and Ellie said they've got horses with sensitive, large, fleshy tongues and corners of the mouth. Which bit? I know you did just mention that before. What bit do you recommend for those types of horses?
Well, for those two, if they've got a Waterford in the box of bits of sitting in their tack room, I would try Waterford first, because it is that soft distribution pressure around all that fleshy chunkiness, and then I would try a Portobello 20. Would be my first 2 bits I would try on them.
Yeah, and so when Dee talks about the barrel 20, that 20 is about the measurement. So, of course, the 20 is quite small, and then you can go bigger and bigger. Which,
it's the ported barrel.
Oh, yeah, ported. So it raises up, there's no pressure in the tongue. Yeah.
Yes. So it's the ported barrel and the Waterford that I would try on those two, relieving as much bar pressure, because you'll probably find the jawline bone structure is quite narrow, but it's been filled with a lot of tongue and cheek. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Natalia has got a youngster that's constantly mouthing and chewing the bit. They've had body work and they've had the teeth done. At the moment, it's in a double jointed fixed full cheek. Would you suggest changing that to what would you suggest changing that to just try and settle it in the mouth a little bit?
So if it's doing a lot of chomping and chewing and it's a baby and it's a 3-piece bit again, so I would want to relieve that bar pressure and put very little tongue pressure. So I would go straight to my lockup or my barrel 20. But then being a baby, it will change in 6 months' time. Always remember, when you're dealing with young horses, you will go through 3 or 4 or 5 bit changes depending on the horse as they understand the communication tool in the mouth and they get stronger in their bodies. You reward them with a softer bit.
And Ali's just asked as well, when you're starting in that initial mouthing and breaking in, you mentioned that earlier, but was that one of the chain bits that you said that you start them in that Waterford bit? Was that right?
Yes, the Waterford barrel, because there is no pressure, so the baby isn't feeling invaded in its mouth or feeling, oh my God, I don't want this in my mouth. With a Waterford, even if you've got a Waterford with the bobbles, that's fine. It's just soft. So it can learn that when you put something in the mouth, we are going to communicate between each other.
Yeah, excellent. And just to reiterate that, in the old days, the chain sort of was that's where you went to if you wanted something that was harsh. But in actual fact, now they've proven that it is actually a bit that doesn't have the resistance, and it is actually like one of those massaging things on your tongue. It's quite comfortable. But remember that no matter what sort of bit you stick in a horse's mouth, it can be a weapon if you've got hands like a gorilla. If you've got hands and you think of it like you're holding baby birds in there, the horse is going to love it. If you ride like, not very nicely, the horse is not going to be happy no matter what bit you stick 100%. In it.
Yes, 100%. The hands have a lot to do with it.
Now, Sonia has asked, her horse is in a bomber barrel with a loose ring, but it's getting a little bit strong. And And then she says that it started opening its mouth and grinding its teeth. Well, I can immediately say, well, if she started opening the mouth and grinding, that's a sign that it's stressing.
Yes.
So maybe you need to make sure that you're doing a pressure release and that you're thinking that happens through the fingertips rather than blocking through the elbow. But going forward, what would you suggest to Sonia to try, because it is getting a bit strong for her and she's not able to release?
So when I'd have 2 or 3 questions on that one. When it's getting strong, is it diving down to get strong, or is it just blocking the muscle group up here?
Okay, let's talk about both of those. So if you're finding your horse is in a 3, so the barrel is a 3 joint. So if it was getting strong in the base of the neck, then the solution would be.
So if it's in a barrel, it will be in one of a bit that looks like this. If it's a bomber barrel, so this is the barrel 30, and then you get the barrel 20, which is a lot smaller. So if the horse is getting strong and is pulling this downwards, then I would go into a ported range, because it's saying that the pressure on the tongue is too much.
Yeah.
If it is blocking and it's holding its head up and it's blocking with these muscles up here, I would try the lockup or the ultra comfy.
Okay. She's joined in and said, yes, it is blocking the muscle. And so, yes, it's in the barrel 30 now. So, yeah, so you would go to the ported barrel
20.
to take that tongue pressure away to see whether you get a bit better release there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The ported barrel 20 is a lovely bit.
Okay.
Because it covers so many ranges. It can fix so many little issues.
Now, do you want to talk a bit about the bridles as well? Because I've not really heard very much. I've seen lots of them around, but I haven't really heard the whole scientific reasoning behind them.
So, the reason why we got into the anatomic bridles, and I like the Pierce of Sweden range, there are a whole lot of different bridles out there, and you can just go and feel which one you feel comfortable with. So I like the Pierce of Sweden. She has like the number of bits I have, she has a number of different style bridles. There's a story I'd like to share. One of our top dressage riders had a pupil that had come for a lesson, and we had done a bridle and bit fit, and the lady said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot my bridle. And they're like, don't worry, we have enough bridles and bits here, and put it on the horse. And the horse was like, yeah, no, I'm not moving, I ain't going anywhere. The client had to go back home, find her bit and bridle, and then the horse did the most beautiful dressage lesson that day. But as soon as the horses do find the pressures they like, they do let you know when you do change it, they're not happy about it. So when we went into doing our bridles, it was when after we've done a bit fit, we noticed a lot of the horses need another change, but I couldn't change the bit anymore because there's no more mechanics in the mouthpiece to change, which made us look into the bridles. Now, the Pierce of Sweden bridle here, this is just what we call our Paladin, and it has a nice headpiece. So around the ears here, you have a nerve endings around the ears. It gives that release around the ears and the nerves. By your pole pressure here, you've got the different widths of headpieces that will distribute the pressure across your pole, so you don't get such a headache, or the horse doesn't get such a headache across the pole. The different types of nose bands that come down, this is known as a Paladin. It's not so straight across the nose. It is cut up. So you've got a bunch of nerves that fit in there. So it releases those nerves. So it just encourages the horse's head to come up and tilt into your hands. So when you get the pressure in the mouth correct, and then you release the pressure on the head, you get that tilt, and you just take your horse to another level. The other nice thing about the Pierce of Sweden range, and I haven't seen it in any of the other bridles, is in the bit, the cheek piece where you put your bit, there's a thing called a cradle, and your bit sits on that. So it lifts the bit again. So if your horse really needs it to really have a soft day, you can put it on that, or you don't have to use it at all. You can just leave it on the normal leather of the cheek piece. But I do enjoy this cradle, and the cradles are dressage legal. Then you'll have a bridle like this, which it's called the high jump, which is for the horses that are ultra sensitive. Now Kirstin will know my horse. He's a big thug of a horse. If you need to go to war, you would use Toby, because he would just bowl anything over. And I could never find anything that I could control him with and feel like a dressage rider in, until I put this particular bridle on. It's called a high jump. It's got a bigger headpiece to distribute the pressure across the pole. The nose, it looks gnarly, but it's not. So the nose here is just, it goes across the bridge of the nose, and it's soft for the chin piece to come behind, as well as there's another piece over here that fits behind the chin. And what it does is it encourages that horse just to come up and be soft in your hands. And I can't ride my thug of a horse in anything else but this. And I just love the Pierce Sweden bridles. They come in all different sizes, for all different, so from little ponies to big saggy horses. So it goes from size 1 to size 4, which is extra full. And we do the double bridles. This is one of our double bridles. Again, has that same technology of where the nerve endings are on the face, the bridle doesn't touch. It releases those pressures, so the horses are more comfortable.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, I've just looked at the time, and we probably need to squeeze in about the Incrediwear, because it's scientific, crazy stuff. And for anybody who has not heard of the Incrediwear stuff, it is really cool. So it's amazing technology.
It is the best. It is my favorite product out of all our products we have here. I love Incrediwear. Incrediwear for horse and human is, I think, you need it in every household. If you have your first aid box needs to be filled with Incrediwear. So what Incrediwear is a guy called Jackson Corey, 8-9 years ago, had a horrible accident in Colorado. He was an extreme sportsman coming down a mountain, hit a lava rock, and damaged his lower back, his spine, every part of his body that you could think of. And he's a doctor, and the doctors came along and said, you have to have all these operations. And he's like, there's no ways I'm having these operations. So he came up and he created Incrediwear. It's a wearable anti-inflammatory. So for him to heal and get back to living a normal life, he had to move the inflammation in his body to encourage the good blood flow to help it heal naturally. So he came up with, I don't know how he did this, but 2 semiconductors, which is a germanium and a carbon, which is embedded in all the fabric. When our body heat touches the semiconductors, it releases negative ions, which the semiconductors create a cellular vibration in our blood circulation. So it all works on our lymphatic system. And then the blood flow will take out all inflammation, all swelling, and encourage a good, healthy blood flow to those points where the pain is, relieve the pain, and encourage a good healing, a natural healing. It's a natural healing. So you're not having to take a Voltaren or a Butte for the horses. It is just releasing the swelling. Especially
Can I just butt in there? I went to the chemist yesterday, and I'm a real wimp. I don't like the cold. And there was those hand warmers and toe warmers. And I thought, I should put those in the car. Now, guess what's in those? Carbon and something else. And you just shake them. And when the carbon mixes with the salt and something else, they stay warm for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things people scoff and go, oh, how can a wrap or a bandage or a support do something magical? But then you go and buy these hand warmers and you go, that is as clear as day. They are warm and toasty for 8 hours. So, it is, you think, oh, it sounds far-fetched, but it is really, it's a fabulous stuff.
Oh, it absolutely is. Especially like for the horses, after you've had a good jumping lesson or dressage, or you're at a show and they're in the box for the whole entire the time they're in the show, you leave the hoof socks on, and that just keeps the circulation going right through the legs, so you don't get any swelling. They don't stiffen up because that circulation is going through the whole time.
With
So
those hoop socks, do you have to bandage over the top of them, or can you
no,
just during the day leave them on as they are?
I leave my hoof socks on 24/7. So
Brilliant.
I stable our herd of horses every single night. And after, so Savvy rides her team in the morning. After she's ridden her team, we wet the hoof socks, because when you wet them, they have an icing effect. Pull them onto the horses and then throw them into the paddock. And then they still stay on that night while they're standing in the paddock until we take them off in the morning when she goes riding.
And that for me is worth millions, because I cringe when I go to a show and I see these horses stood in yards. They've either got no support on their legs and their riders are off fiddling around all day, and their horses are stood there not walked and getting legs that are filling. Or I see the other, that they've bandaged it, and I think, good God, look at all the wrinkles in those bandages. If you don't bandage your horse's leg correctly,
Yes.
I would never let my grooms, generally bandage my horses for the overnight, because I was paranoid that they'll bandage it wrong and make it lame. So the fact that you can pull on a sock, it's done, it's dusted, it's no risk of injury, and you can walk away and know that it's doing its job is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So now you hear me often talk about Lenny. So Lenny for us is our dream boy, and he's our old schoolmaster that takes Savvy over her big cross country jumps that she does. And we like to wrap his back legs with the Incrediwear exercise bandages when we do cross country. When you hit the first water jump, they start icing by the time we come to the end.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And
Yeah.
and you can also get all the
special way that you've got to wrap them so they don't unwrap. And yeah, thank goodness the grooms that we have know how to do that, because I don't.
It's better for you just to stand back and let them do that job, definitely.
Yes.
And they've got, that's why we've got Jeffrey in the background there, because the Incrediwear, of course, he built it for humans first, and then he designed it for horses as well. So it's got the whole range for humans as well, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. The shoulders, the arm sleeves, or most of there's a polo lady here in Cleveland, and she comes and she buys the arm sleeves a lot. So when the polo season's on, I mean, they're swinging their arms all the time and they get tired and fatigued. And that's exactly what the Incrediwear does, is she wears it so the next day her arms have recovered for another game of polo.
Right. So is there different types of Incrediwear? So the stuff that you wet so it has an icing effect, is that different to that black stuff? Because I've seen those, and those are the grey ones. So the black material, is that something that does something different?
No, it's the same, except he says the black is for your active wear.
Right.
Yeah, so your black is more active wear. So sportsmen can wear the black while they are training, exercising. I guess so you don't really see the dirt, but it's the same. It's just two different colors.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And the human socks. The human socks are absolutely amazing.
They are. I can vouch for that, because when I have no cartilage left in my ankle, and when I stand teaching all day, I get a real bad pain in that ankle. And when I've started with the Incredi socks, I don't get that pain anymore, which is magic. It saves me just swigging back the old Panadols all through the end of the day.
Yes, and the yoga pants. You need to get yoga pants, Kirstin. I must send you a pair of yoga pants, in fact.
Excellent.
Because you do so much running and exercise, and you're on your feet the whole time, and legs and so on, that the yoga pants will be absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. So tell us, Dee, do you have a website? How's the best way for people to go and have a look at all of your things?
Yes, we have a website. It's sterlingcollection.co.nz. And on there will be an Incrediwear Learn page, our Incrediwear Humans on there, our Equine, our PS of Sweden. It's all on there. And the bomber bits are slowly getting put onto the website. Not all bomber bits are on the website.
Excellent. And are you happy for people to send you some messages after that? We've got a few messages there that we haven't been able to get answered during the show, but if you've got time, whether you would have a chance to have a look through those and answer those. And, you know,
Yes.
already people are saying, oh, do you think Dee would be able to come and do a talk for our adult ride? And things? We might be bombarded with those sorts of things.
No problem. Yep, they can just email me at d@sterlingcollection.co.nz, and then I can answer all the questions that they have on.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Excellent. So you'll see there, guys, that there's a banner saying patrons of mine will receive a 10% discount this month at Sterling Collections. So just reminding everybody, I do run a mentoring system. So you're enjoying this sort of content. I do a Q&A session every week for my patrons, as well as watching their videos that they send me and critiquing them, and just being there as a guider and somebody to bounce ideas off and to just keep you enthused and keep you on the right track. So if that's something that interests you, check out my website or Patreon, Kirstin Kelly Equestrian, and just go and have a little bit of a look-see. To all my patrons, I will send you the link on Patreon so that you can go and get your discount as well from Dee. So Dee, thank you so much for this evening. That was really awesome.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem.
And I hope everyone knows how it's worked now.
Excellent. Well, you know what? Everybody will be sat there thinking, crikey, okay, what does my horse do now? What do I need to do to really think that through? And I know Dee does do bit fittings. The thing I would say is that, you know, so often people do say, I've tried every bit there is, but that's the problem, is they're trying all of the bits in the same sort of mouthpiece, and they actually haven't tried a whole variety of mouthpieces. That's the secret. And quite often, I taught an old schoolmaster for years, and he had been in a Callum his whole life, and he pulled like a train, and we took him and put him in the softest, mildest bit, and he never pulled ever after that. So it just shows you that whole thing is it's about understanding pressures and what pressure your horse likes, so that he can respond to that pressure, and then you can release the pressure. So
just remember that saying, release the pressure to gain control.
Exactly. Excellent. Awesome. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.